Hello everybody, my name is Lenora Fitzgerald and I have been working as a community infection prevention and control nurse with the South East Community Healthcare Organisation during COVID-19. So we are here today in FCJ Bunclody to speak with the students about COVID-19 and how to stay safe during this time. So what we're going to cover is about COVID-19. We're going to look at the symptoms and how this disease is transmitted from person to person. We're going to explain how you can protect yourself and others from COVID-19. We're going to look at hand hygiene, why it's important, when we perform hand hygiene and how to do it correctly. And then look at personal protective equipment. So we're going to focus on correct mask wearing. And then we'll mention about cough etiquette and respiratory hygiene and your responsibility to keep your school environment safe. So we know that the coronavirus causes the common head cold, but this is a new, novel coronavirus disease. This specific strain of the coronavirus has never been seen before, and that's why the human race has been caught off guard with fighting this virus. So there has been a lot of learning in the past year, and the advice and support that is coming through public health from the World Health Organization to keep everyone safe. So we know that COVID-19 was first reported to the World Health Organization China office on the 31st of December 2019. And on the 7th of January 2020, the virus causing this infection was identified as a novel coronavirus disease. So on the 30th of January 2020, the COVID-19 outbreak was declared a public health emergency of international concern. And on the 11th of March, the World Health Organization confirmed the COVID-19 outbreak to be a pandemic. On the 29th of February 2020, the first case of COVID-19 was confirmed here in Ireland. We have all experienced COVID-19 related restrictions in the past year, but also learned important public health measures to keep us safe. The research and development of effective vaccines is a really positive measure confirmed in November 2020. Which is very welcome as we continue this very important battle against COVID-19. COVID-19 and the symptoms. So I want to just mention the symptoms of COVID-19 or coronavirus, symptoms of the common cold, and then symptoms of the flu. So with COVID-19, the symptoms range from mild to severe respiratory symptoms, fever, cough, shortness of breath, aches and pains, sore throat, headaches, fatigue, runny or stuffy nose. And sometimes people report diarrhea and vomiting, or they may also report loss of taste or smell. Sneezing, not so common with coronavirus or flu, but we do see that with the common cold. The transmission of COVID-19. So we know that this infectious respiratory disease is spread from person to person. So it's spread mainly by those in close physical contact with one another, so that is within 2 meters or 6 feet, through respiratory droplets produced when an infected person coughs or sneezes, sings, shouts, or even talks. So people are thought to be at their most contagious when they are at their most symptomatic, at their sickest, but some spread is possible before people show symptoms. And as I've mentioned already, is some people don't show any symptoms at all, and they potentially could spread the virus unknowingly to others because they didn't know they had it. Infected respiratory droplets can land on the mouths or noses of those who are nearby, or possibly be inhaled into the lungs, and this is called direct contact, or by droplets that land on surfaces or objects and then be spread by contaminated hands. We know this virus gradually dies off over time, and the amount of infectious virus on any contaminated surface is likely to have decreased significantly by 72 hours. So how can I protect myself and others from COVID-19? So everybody is talking now about the importance of physical distancing of 2 metres and wearing a mask if you have to be within 2 metres. Now I know in the school environment that you're wearing masks, all students and teachers are wearing masks, so it is 1 metre within that environment, because otherwise in that schools wouldn't be able to accommodate all students in the wonderful way that education has been able to continue in the last number of months. So there is a really good video that the Government of Ireland has shared, and we're going to look at that now, and it's COVID-19 safety bubbles.
When you keep your distance, no matter how awkward it feels, you are protecting yourself and those around you from the spread of COVID-19. But when you drop your guard, when groups get together, when you shake hands or hug someone you love, when you step forward instead of taking a step back, you could become exposed to the virus, and so could the people around you. Help drive the number of cases down. Keep your guard up.
The other ways that you can protect yourself are good hand hygiene, cough etiquette and respiratory hygiene, environmental hygiene, keeping your school, your desk, your table all clean, and limiting your contacts. It is also important that if you are showing any symptoms and you're asked to isolate at home, that you do that. That is to keep everyone else safe. It is to allow you time to recover, but it is limiting the spread, and that you are showing your safety responsibility in appreciating the risk of this, and that you are doing everything that you can to keep others safe. Why do we clean our hands? So infection, including respiratory infections, are spread by contaminated hands even when they look clean. Good hand hygiene remains one of the single most important and essential measures to prevent the spread of infection. Our hands may look visibly clean. We don't see virus on our hands because viruses are just so microscopic. We would probably need thousands upon thousands of them on our hands for us to even see a speck. They are just microscopic. So it is important to always have that heightened sense of awareness that if we touch something that's potentially contaminated, that we perform hand hygiene and ensure our hands are clean, so we're not putting ourselves at risk and we're not exposing others to that risk also. The next little clip that we're going to show you is a video of Professor Martin Cormacan, who met with Jonathan McCrae from the RTE Science Programme, and he showed him a really important lesson on the importance of good hand hygiene practice to keep us safe.
Because we can't treat superbugs, preventative measures are essential. And while it may seem obvious, hand washing remains the single most effective way to prevent the spread of infection.
So what are we going to do?
So here's a big plate. It's got stuff kind of like jelly on it that we call agar. And you can put your hand right, and it's sterile, so you can put your hand right into the middle of this, and then we can come back later and we can see what bacteria have grown. Yeah.
So we're doing a before and after?
Yeah, if you put your hands on now, and then we'll see what grows from it, and you can wash your hands and do it again.
It's a bit slimy. Okay, so I can see my handprint is there.
Yeah.
Go forth and multiply bacteria.
That's right.
After washing my hands the way I would normally, Martin gets me to put them on a second agar plate. And then finally, using a technique similar to the way surgeons scrub in, Martin shows me how we should all be washing our hands.
You get the palm of your hand, and now we get your wrist.
It's like the Macarena.
Yeah. And we turn off with elbows, not with hands, so that you don't recontaminate your hands. Okay.
So these should be pristine hands now, Martin?
Yes.
Now I've tried my best to wash all the bacteria off my hands, it's time to compare the 3 plates. First up, it's my unwashed hands.
Okay.
And what you can see here is that there's lots of bacteria growing, and you can see where your fingertips went down.
Yeah.
There's lots of bacteria in the fingertips. So
No
that's your regular
surprise there,
hand.
I suppose.
No surprise there. These are the kind of bacteria that we normally expect to find in somebody's hands.
All right.
So what do you expect to find when you look at the plate where you washed your hands the regular way?
Well, I would imagine it.
Not
I
much
was going to
difference.
say, I imagine, maybe a fifth, but actually that looks like almost exactly the same amount of bacteria as if I had not washed my hands.
Yeah, and it is almost exactly the same. So these are the places that you miss when you do your hands. So the way people mostly do their hands, then they miss key parts of the hand. And then what do you expect to see when you look at the one where you did it by the book?
Well, not complete. Oh, I know it is.
Yeah,
wow,
so
that
pretty
is,
much nothing on it.
There doesn't seem to be any colonies
Okay,
there.
so it's not a perfect procedure, but generally speaking, if you do it by the book, there'll be very, very little left afterwards.
I'll be drumming this into my kids now when I go home.
So to begin with, then you get a palmful, about 3 or 5 mils of alcohol hand rub in your hands, and then rubbing your hands palm to palm together, getting in between your fingers, and then going to the back of your fingers and swapping over and doing the other hand, and then flipping over and getting into the backs of the fingers with the tips of your fingers, and then just rubbing that in, and then with the tips of your fingers again, rubbing the palm of your hand and the other palm and your thumbs from the base right up to the tip, and the other thumb. And after 20 to 30 seconds, all the gel is rubbed in and your hands are all cleaned. So when do we perform hand hygiene? You perform hand hygiene before you eat, before you prepare a meal, before you touch your face, before you enter school or enter a classroom, before you touch a keypad or door handle, before you touch an item belonging to another person, before you visit your grandparents, and before you apply a mask. And then you perform hand hygiene after you blow your nose, after you sneeze or cough, after you use the toilet, after you eat, after you work, play with animals or pets, after you come in from outside, after you get home from school, after you touch a keypad or door handle, after you touch an item belonging to another person. But ideally we do not touch items after we clean an item that was dirty, after we touch a cut or graze, and after we remove our masks. PPE, which is personal protective equipment, and masks. So who would have thought a year ago that we'd all be wearing masks now, and that it is a most important measure to keep us safe. Masks are there to protect us, but also to protect others in case we have the virus. So it is important, and I've mentioned before, that we perform hand hygiene before donning and after removing our mask, and that we always wear a mask when within 2 meters of anyone outside our family unit and when we are in school. So the surgical masks or the single-use masks, these are disposed of after a single use, and they are disposed of carefully into a bin. And then most of us, when we are in school and out and about, we have cloth masks. It is important to store these carefully and you might have a small supply in your school bag. So you have a bag, a plastic bag, a sealable plastic bag that has clean ones and dirty ones. So it is important when you remove a mask that you put it into the bag to be brought home and laundered. And from what I've seen in young people here in school today is that you have excellent awareness of how to wear masks correctly. But I do want to share the World Health Organization clip here on safe mask usage.
A fabric mask acts as a barrier to prevent the spread of the virus. It must be used correctly and always combined with other measures to protect yourself and everyone else. When wearing a fabric mask, clean your hands before putting it on. Inspect the mask and do not use it if it is damaged or dirty. Cover your mouth, nose and chin. Adjust the mask to your face, leaving no gaps on the sides. Avoid touching the mask while wearing it. Change your mask once it gets dirty or wet. To take off the mask, clean your hands first. Remove it by the straps behind the head or ears without touching the front of the mask. As you remove the mask, pull it away from your face. Clean your hands after taking off any mask. If you need to reuse a fabric mask, Store it in a clean, resealable bag. Hold the mask at the elastic ends when removing it from the bag and make sure it is not dirty or wet before using it again. Wash fabric masks in soap or detergent, preferably with hot water, at least once a day. Make sure you have your own mask and do not share it with others. When wearing a mask, make sure you know how to put it on, use it, remove it, and discard it or wash it correctly. Remember that a mask alone cannot protect you. When wearing a mask, continue to adopt other measures to prevent the spread of the virus. Stay at least 1 meter away from others. Clean your hands frequently and thoroughly, and avoid touching your face and mask. Stay safe, and let's all prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Respiratory hygiene and cough etiquette. It's not good enough anymore to cough without a mask on or without covering your mouth, because if it is that you had any coronavirus symptoms, it is the way that this virus loves to spread and find other people to infect. So we need to be aware of what correct respiratory hygiene is, and that is coughing or sneezing into our elbow, where we don't aim it at the people that we're with, but we aim away into the crook of our elbow. Or if it is something that we've always done and it is safe, is that we have our single-use tissue. We cough or sneeze into our tissue and dispose of it immediately into a bin, and we perform hand hygiene. So for some time, cases have been rising, especially in younger age groups. It's now more important than ever that we understand how protective measures can keep us all safe and slow down the spread of COVID-19. We need to ensure that we perform hand hygiene before we enter school and each classroom, so we do not unintentionally contaminate the environment. Routine environmental cleaning is required to minimise the number of microorganisms or bugs or germs in the environment. Particular attention should be given to frequently touched surfaces and those most likely to be contaminated, so chairs, tabletops, door handles and hand rub dispensers.
Do you think there's a stigma associated with people who have tested positive for COVID?
So I think that's a really brilliant question, and I think it is something that we all need to appreciate, that this is new territory for all of us. There's some people still learning lessons that we've learned and we understand. But if you feel that anybody, like if somebody has COVID-19, it is important that lots of people have got infected through no fault of their own. It is a very sneaky virus that wants to survive, so it will find ways of making sure that it gets onto your hands, and then we unwittingly touch our faces, and this is where the risk is. So it is important that we do not judge anybody who has COVID-19.
If you're in close contact with someone who has COVID-19, do you have to get tested for it?
So spending more than 2 hours in an indoor space with someone who has COVID-19 will sometimes count as a close contact or casual contact. This could be in a classroom setting, but it will depend on the size of the room and other factors. Public health doctors or contact tracers will let you know if you are at risk during contact tracing and public health risk assessments.
Does it matter if it's hot or cold water when you wash your hands?
I do not recommend hot water, as it can damage the skin on your hands. Cold water, this is okay, it's not as pleasant as warm water, and it can be more challenging to form a good lather with soap. Warm water is best. It is well tolerated by our skin and possible to get a good lather with soap.
Which should be better, liquid soap or a bar soap?
So really the answer there is that once you get a good soap lather on your hands, that's the most important thing.
What is the difference between disposable masks and reusable masks?
So outside a healthcare setting, reusable, washable masks are advised. Wearing them correctly is essential, and ensuring they are washed correctly after each wear.
Why are we 2 metres away from each other outside of school and 1 metre away in school?
Everyone is wearing a mask. So this is to ensure that all students are able to attend school and get an education. And the World Health Organization will say 2 metres is safe. But we know that greater distance that you are from someone, the less risk you are to getting COVID-19. So within the school setting, to accommodate all students, that 1 metre is the rule within the school setting, but then everyone, students and teachers, have a responsibility to wear their masks.
What would have happened if we hadn't have went to lockdown in March?
I think we had a really positive response from the government and the National Public Health Emergency Team. They worked very closely and they were unified in communicating the important messages of physical distancing, wearing the masks if we're within 2 metres, good hand hygiene, respiratory hygiene and cough etiquette, and environmental hygiene. I think in Ireland we had a consistent message, and it has definitely ensured that we made a really good united response to fighting COVID-19. So I want to thank all the students here in FCJ Bunclody for the welcome and for their participation in the sessions that we've delivered here today. And I hope that all the students who get to watch this presentation can learn a little bit more about COVID-19 and how to stay safe during this pandemic.